Greetings, brothers and sisters. God bless you. I'm here today with Brother Abel Esquivel Sr.
We're here in English, so I'm sorry, it's Abel.
Abel. Very good. Thank you
kidding.
for being with us today, Brother Abel.
Yeah.
So let's see. Today we're going to discuss abuse prevention for children's ministry workers and how we can help teachers maybe who don't have the training, but to help them to prevent abuse in their churches.
So, hi, my name is Abel. Maybe a lot of people don't know me. I'm actually a county social worker for CPS. But also I've been serving for the children's ministry in my church for about over 40 years. I'm 55 and I started when I was 16 years old, serving to the Lord as a Sunday school teacher. So I've been around for a long time. So, and I've learned the hard way sometimes. So I've learned. I'm actually the director and the founder of Ministerio Infantil Arcoiris, and so we do a lot of trainings and different stuff out in the community, especially different countries. So, but we're here to help you out today and trying to give you some tips. Usually this workshop is about 4 hours long, so we're trying to do it in half hour and try to get the most of it and give you some tips. So you'll have a handout at the end. Christine, a little book pamphlet you can download, follow the instructions, and give you more tips on how to protect. Our priority is always, number one, is to protect our children. That is our first priority. It's always to protect. And I forgot to say it in the Spanish workshop, but the Bible says, even Jesus said it, that if you're not going to save a child, you should go hang yourself. And by not doing, by omission, if you don't do nothing about it, you're contributing to the abuse. And so therefore, the Bible says you need to do something about it. So it's not that you have to do it, but you have to, if you don't do it, you're doing it the same. There's a commercial I saw a long time ago in Australia that were doing it about domestic violence. And you can hear it on the wall, a woman being banged against the wall. The husband was beating the wife. And you can see the old man gets mad, gets up, and they show him with a bat in his hand, and he knocks on the door, and they hands him over the bat here. And the message was, by not reporting it, you are doing the same to the child. So you need to really work on protecting your kids. But not only about protecting your kids, it's also about protecting yourself. The church sometimes is accused, and sometimes there are true allegations, and there are false allegations. So you need to protect. I was telling Sister Christina that one time I had a church where I was doing a church, one of those annual, they do like what's called a convention. I'm sorry, the word is convention. Our church convention was going on, and I had over 200 children, and one of the kids was running wild. So it was easier for me instead of using my arm across the chest and try to stop, I grabbed her arm, but she kept on going. So she said I hurt her arm, and at the end of the service, I had the mom came over and almost slapped me and saying, did a lot of things to me, like only because I'm a woman, and only because we're in church, and you're lucky my husband's not here, because otherwise he would have beat you up. And in no way my idea was to hurt the child in any way. But by the time the child got to the mom, the story got converted to a different way, and so I had to write a report to defend myself, what I did, what happened, just in case the family did take legal actions against me. So I had to do a special incident report. And I forgot, anytime you have any incidents inside the church where a kid gets hurt, no matter what, safety or due to a hazard in the church, you need to report it, and you must have a record, because you never know. Here in the United States, we can have lawsuits. In other countries, you might not have that. So, but just in case something says something and rings a bell on you, you can always pull out the record and say, look, this is what I did, this is what happened, and I'd report it to the pastor. Always communicate this to your senior pastor. That's the main key. And the church must have a protocol on what you guys can do when an allegation comes by in the church of a member, or a child comes to you and makes a statement that what's happening in his home is not safe. You must have a protocol in your own church on how to handle something like that. And I want to touch on this. It is not your job to investigate and have to prove. Your job as the children's pastor or the Sunday school teacher or small group, children's small group out in the community, is to report it to your senior pastor and find out what's the protocol. How do you report it to your local authorities and follow that. But you must always believe the child. It is not your job to start asking all the questions to the kid. How did it happen? When did it happen? Tell me all about it.
Okay.
So it's very work with your senior pastor and do the presentations about child abuse. And one of them is, I've gone to churches where, one of the deacons or ushers, he thought he was part of the WWF and did wrestling in the church with one of the kids, and one of the kids got hurt. He almost broke his arm. So I had to go to the church, explain what the church could do, what was needed to be a protocol. So that way, you need to protect yourself. A lot of the times, a lot of the abusers, especially in sexual abuse in the church, is mostly men. And also where mostly the false allegations come from it's against men. So if you have men serving in your ministry, you need to do a lot to protect yourself. For example, you must have windows in your classroom. But if you cannot have windows for certain reasons, due to budget, due to the structure of the building, then you must have at least open doors. Or if you can, one of those doors that's a double, where you can at least close the bottom and then the top can always be kept open, so that way the kids don't get out of the classroom. So that's another way where anybody can come by your classroom at any time without disturbing the classroom, and that helps a lot. It is always recommended that you have at least two instructors in the class. But for some reason, you cannot have two instructors. Invite at least one of the parents to be in the class. Be at least like the helpers. That way, if anything happens, there is already another adult in the classroom. Never be by yourself with a child. Never. Always open door. If you're going to talk to a child, do it open when everybody can see you. In the other workshop, I was telling that I had a church member they were having their vacation Bible school, and they had a young girl. She's about, I think, around 12, 13 years old, or 14 at the most. And the gentleman, the BBS instructor, was the husband. He thought it was easy. He pulled out the girl out of the classroom and talked to her by himself. He didn't have anybody next to him. That one should have been done by his wife, not by him. And so the girl made the allegation that he invited her out to dinner, and he was trying to date with her. So the church got in uproar, kicked him out of the church. They even asked the wife, "You want to divorce him? We'll put you in an apartment so you and your daughter are safe." I mean, it just got out of proportion. One little thing. What happened, we will never know. He says he never did. He was just, getting on her case about discipline, and that was it. And unfortunately, he got kicked out of the church, and things got out of control.
Wow.
But if you think that this might not happen in your church, oh no, my church is holy. This will never happen in my church. you're wrong. That is the biggest mistake you're ever going to make. Saying this will never happen in my church. Hopefully it will never happen. You can never be 100%, but you sure can try to protect as much as you can your children and your staff. Sadly enough, I know of somebody who was very close. He was a leader, a regional leader of Church of God. He was a well-known member. He was a well-known Sunday school teacher. His family, pillars of the Church of God, that were very involved in the church, pastors. His dad was a pastor. His wife was a cousin to my ex-wife. So his family member. And he had a master's degree. He worked as a school teacher. I mean, he had all the credentials to be a great man, and he was a good Sunday school teacher, except one of my nephews, it was one of my family members who made the allegations that he was actually molesting some of the boys in the church. So he blew up, and so he got 9 years in jail. And now I can go in line here in California. It's called Megan Law, and I can search him. I put in his name, and his face is there for life, because now he's a registered sex offender. So for life, we can all set enough. But then you hear these other stories. There's one story in my work where this little girl, she was about 9 years old. This does not happen at a church, but it did happen at a school. And because of a school teacher who acted on just not on a, am I a believer, not believer? This little girl told her little friend, I'm scared of going home. And so the little friend said, why? And the little girl said, because this is what's happening in my house. So the little girl went home, told her mom, and the mom went to the school and said, look, this is what's happening. So instead of the principal doing the investigation, asking all the questions and trying to investigate, he called the police. He called the proper authorities like he had to do it. And the stepfather got arrested. The mom got arrested. It was a very, very sad story. 9 years old, he was being abused by his stepfather. So, but because someone acted and believed in the girl, the abuse stopped. And unfortunately, I cannot share all the details, but believe me, when we were doing the interview, we call it a cast interview. And when the district attorney, the detective, the social worker, and I was there, and then the forensic interviewer was doing the interview, which is a co-worker, a social worker. She was doing the interview. At the end of the interview, we were crying because just to hear a very sad story. We were, just crying. We were sad. It's just, how could this happen to this little girl at 9 years old? So it can happen in your church. So don't believe that because you're God is holy, but a lot of the members are not holy. That's the problem. I can trust in God, but I cannot trust in men. So unfortunately, we have to protect. I was talking also another incident about 25 years ago. Not only our job is to protect our kids from other child abuse, either physical abuse, sexual abuse, or other types of abuse, but we also manage to protect our children for safety in the church. I was sharing the story that where this van at this church was made like the Mexican style. I said the Mexican style because I'm Mexican, where they put buckets for seats, and they took away all the seats, the regular seats by the car dealer, and they took all the seats. They made them, instead of using regular car seats, they were using buckets, and they were using crates to have people sit down. And they had over 20 people in that van. Well, that van got T-boned on the side. The doors opened up, and women and children were flying out of the car. So you need to make sure that, and children and moms died in that accident. So, and it wasn't just one death. It were like 10 deaths. There were 10 dead people that passed away in that, children and moms. So you also need to protect, make sure that whoever drives the children to summer camp or any church activity, they have insurance. They have the ways to protect the children, that you have a good car, is in good working condition, and that the driver has a license, the driver has insurance, and that all the kids are buckled up. And I know it's easier to put an event that fits only 5 or 6 people. We can put another 20 kids in there, but it's your job is to protect our children, your children, is to protect your children. Make sure that, and also that the church is always safe. Toys, the area. So if you're on the outdoors, that your church is safe. No snakes or bugs are gonna bite your kids and stuff like that. So you need to make sure that your kids are always safe. Another, I was saying before, because we did the workshop in Spanish before. Another tip that I was talking is, if you have any outside activities outside the church, it cannot be your family member. It has to be a church member, but it's not blood related to you. Especially in pajamas, where parties where you stay overnight. You want to make sure that you have other church members that are not blood related. That way, if an allegation comes out, you can always say, "Hey, he's not blood related." Because if I were, for example, if I were to take my brother to the activity, and an allegation comes out, they're going to say, "Sure, that's your brother. He just covered it for you." So this is one way to protect yourself. And also the church needs to.
Sorry, we just have a few more minutes, brother. If you want to share your last tips with everyone.
Tips: always never be alone with the kids. If you're going to talk to a kid, have someone. It doesn't have to be the parent, but have another adult to be with you. That way they can listen. Especially if it's a little girl, you want to have at least another female church member who's there present, who doesn't have to, listen to everything, but at least or give her opinion, but at least be there present for you. That way you can counsel your students and not be by yourself. You don't want to have a protocol with your senior pastor when an allegation comes out. I had a pastor called me up to do a workshop because one of his worship leaders was accused by his nephew. And of course, the first is always, it couldn't be true, not true. He's just a saint. He is one of the best members in our church. And I told him, look, your job is not to investigate, but to believe the child. You need to remove him from the service till all investigations are over, whether it's false or not, until all the things are cleared up, and then you can serve back. For the meantime, he can just sit down and listen to the service while everything's going on. The church must have a protocol when an allegation comes in inside the church, so that way protocols follow up. And not just, you're not on your own. You always talk to your senior pastor. So what are you going to do next? So do not bypass your senior pastor, because that's a big mistake. Because if something happens, if your senior pastor doesn't know what's going on, he's not going to be able to back you up. You need both of the senior pastors to be on board. That way he can protect you and cover yourself. Any other questions? Or?
Well, I think that's a good amount of information for us, even though it's only a half an hour. It gives us a few ideas for the brothers and sisters to use in their churches. So basically, just to review really quick, I have written down here from Brother Abel, sorry. So, saying, if one of the children in your ministry is saying, accusing a teacher or their parent or someone of abuse, you want to believe the child. It's not our job to investigate. We just need to go to our pastors and report what's going on. Let the authorities do the investigation. And then just some ideas that we can do is have the door open for your Sunday school classroom. If you don't have any windows, keep your door open and have 2 teachers in the classroom instead of 1, making sure that the second teacher is not a family member of yours, because that won't work for protection. And also just pointing out that you mentioned earlier too, that most of the abuse that either is from men or the false accusations is also against men. So we kind of want to take care of the men. If you have any men in your children's ministry, make sure that they're not alone in a classroom or bringing children to the bathroom alone, for example. So
yeah,
and I just like,
when I was studying to be a preschool teacher, and I was finishing my preschool, and I was asking, how can I get a job? And back then, this is 23 years ago, I said, don't even try, because a lot of preschool won't hire you because you're a man. They don't want to take that risk because you're a man. They will not hire me as a preschool teacher. Back then, things have changed, but because I was a man, because they didn't want to be taking a risk with false allegations. So it doesn't mean don't use men. It means just got to protect yourself, got to protect your kids. But always number 1, protect the kids. Always 1, protect the kids. The other, you can always use common sense. Don't be by yourself. So you don't put yourself. Don't do good things that look bad. Don't go pick up kids on your own after school. I mean, after service by yourself, and especially one-on-one, unless you have permission. Don't put yourself in a situation where you don't want to be in. So protect yourself always.
Okay, also we have here below in the comments, I put the link down. So this is a handout that Brother Abel has given us to help us with abuse prevention. So you're welcome, it's free, and you can click on that link and download that. And also, before we go, Brother Abel, I just wanted to mention you have an event coming up in Ecuador.
Yes, our Congreso, our convention is coming up, and we invited Mana Cristina, so we're still hoping that she's going to make it. We're still crossing our fingers. We're waiting for Waffle to say yes, so hopefully she'll go with us. It's going to be November 10, 11 in Ecuador, and it's going to be for 3 days, different from all over. Going to come from Mexico, United States, Venezuela. We have a teacher coming, one of our conference teachers coming also from Uruguay. So we have all over different countries coming over, and all for one mission.
That's
so
the convention is going to be in Spanish, correct?
Correct. Yes. Unfortunately, yes. It's all in Spanish.
Well, but there might
if you're learning Spanish here to November, you're welcome to come or bring a translator. We'll help you out.
Yeah.
My website is ministerioinfantil.com. So .com. I'm sorry, ministerioinfantil.com. She'll put the link for you, so you can always contact us for any questions or any concerns directly to our ministry. So we're always glad to help you out, answer the questions.
There's Brother Abel's website, and you're welcome to contact Brother Abel or Abel if you have any other questions. And also, we'll be following this video, so if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments below, and we'll keep tracking that as the week goes by.
All right, take care. Have a good one. God bless you. And keep out of the work with the Lord. It's all about the children.
Okay, thank you, brother. God bless you. Thank you.
All right. Bye.